Hi everyone, welcome to Best Recipes with Sharon. Today I'm making a really good side dish called Harvard Beets, and if you stay with me I'll show you how it's done. And because beets are really good for you, this is a really good recipe to actually have the family enjoy, because it actually takes the taste of the beets and brings it up to a whole new level. So I start by chopping the tops off the beets, but leave a little bit of a stem on it so that it doesn't bleed. Take and wash any dirt off the beet. Then place them into a pot with some water, just enough to cover the beets. And this pot will work, but putting it in a larger pot will help some if you have one handy. Then turn the heat on high and get them to start boiling. Place the lid on the pot and let it start to come to a boil. Once it's come to a boil, turn the heat down a little bit and let it just continue to boil, and move the lid just off to the side, because otherwise it will boil too much and it will actually spew over some of the juices onto the stove, and it can make a heck of a mess because of its natural red dye. Now it depends on the size of the beets how long it will take them to cook, but it will take approximately 45 minutes for beets about this size. And you'll know the beets are cooked for sure when you can pierce them easily with a fork or a knife. And only cook them just until they're tender. Then drain off the hot water in a strainer. Then dump the beets back into your pot and pour cold water over them, and keep running cold water over them to cool them down quickly. Once the beets have had a chance to cool off a little bit, then you will be able to peel them easily. You can basically take just one hand and rub the skin and the stem, and it will basically just shed off like this real easily. So just continue doing that until you've got them all done. And I like to use beets that are actually on the small side, either small to medium but not too large. It's much sweeter, I find, but this recipe can spruce up any size of beet. If you have a large beet, just cut it in smaller pieces so that the actual sauce will coat it well. Now I take and chop the beets into large chunks. You can slice them if that's what you prefer, but I like the large chunks when I'm using this as a side dish. Remember, we're not making pickles, so it's not pickled beets. This is an actual side dish, and it can really be used as your main vegetable at your meal if you choose to do that. And you can certainly eat some beets just the way they are, plain Jane, but when you add this sauce to it, it just adds a whole new level of flavor that I quite like. So alright, let me show you how to make the sauce. Start by adding 2 cups of chopped beets into a medium-sized saucepan. Next, add half a cup of white sugar. A quarter of a cup of white vinegar. And a half a cup of water. Now stir this really well with a large spoon to incorporate all the flavors throughout the beets before you put it onto the stove to start to heat this up. I place a lid on top so that the heat will actually build up inside a little bit quicker. That's just starting to heat up. But I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of butter now. You can add it at any point that you like. It doesn't matter when you add it, since it's going to melt in there anyway. So continue to heat this up until it starts to steam pretty good. Then I take a separate little measuring cup and I mix 2 teaspoons of cornstarch with a quarter cup of water. I use this to thicken the sauce a little bit. You don't want the sauce very thick, you just want it to start to coat the beets nicely, because as it cools off it will thicken up even more. So add your cornstarch and water very slowly, little bit at a time, and stirring constantly. Adding it slowly and stirring it will help to avoid any lumps, and will also help with the consistency so that you can get it just right. So be careful not to get too happy with it. If you don't need all of it, then certainly stop. Sometimes you might need a little bit more and you have to mix up a little bit more. So this is kind of your own judgment, but I do like to do it a little tad on the thin side. It'll look thin when you're actually thickening it right now. But as it cools down a little bit and you put it in the bowl, it will actually glaze the beets, and that's exactly what you want it to do. Like I said, if you have some left over and you put it in the fridge and it cools off, it will actually thicken up quite a bit more again. So yeah, just when it coats the spoon a little bit, or you see that it coats the side of the bowl, that's about perfect. If you like beets, the smell of this cooking in the house is quite a sweet aroma. And even if you don't like beets, maybe this recipe will win you over, and you'll say this beats anything else I've ever tried. So go ahead and give it a try, you just might like it. Thanks for watching today's episode of Best Recipes with Sharon, and until next time, enjoy.